The big news in the last 24 hours in Browns land is, yes, they're starting training camp today. They reported yesterday. But Denzel Ward, the dean of the Cleveland Browns, the longest tenured Brown now that Myles Garrett's gone, now that Joel Bitonio's gone. There you go. Ian Rapoport, or Tony Dandy. Oh, no, he's the guy who negotiated. Ian Rapoport with a new deal for Denzel. 2-year, $62.2 million extension. Makes him the highest paid defensive back in NFL history for the second time in his career. The deal includes $52.3 million guaranteed, so all but $9.9 million guaranteed, guys. He has 2 years left on his current deal, which will be his age 29 and 30 season. And then these two added years, and we don't have the details on like when they can get out of it, but these 2 extra years in which he's scheduled to make $31.1 million per year, with most of it guaranteed, $26 million, I guess, on average guaranteed per year. He will be 31 and 32.
Yeah.
Chris, did the Browns make a mistake?
No.
No?
I think Denzel Ward, especially with the turnover you've had on the roster and all the other things going on with it, he has been nothing but a consummate pro. He has been a great bell ringer for the community, a great bell ringer for your franchise. He's played really well. You absolutely extend him. Now, does he see the end of that contract before they move off? We don't know. We don't know the specifics of the detail. There's no Myles Garrett poison pill in there that makes you think, well, maybe they'll trade him by this. But you absolutely reward the guy that has done nothing but everything you've asked him to do and has been, I guess, now the Browns' best player, right? Even at 29, 28, he's still
right
their best
now,
player.
I still say he's their best player, yes.
Yeah, they absolutely made the right decision. You got to reward the guys who have been there for you. So I have no problem with this at all.
Jason?
Now, when is Zach back on?
Because Zach doesn't like this at all, Zach Jackson.
Yeah, Zach was anti-making this deal. He basically said it just doesn't fit their timeline.
Yeah.
Makes it harder to tank games. Zach's back in later this week. We're still working out because of training camp schedule. Is he going to come in Thursday or Friday? But
so he can explain his own thought process on that. I do think this is different than Myles. I was completely in favor of trading Myles. I thought they should have done it last year. And Denzel is different because, number one, he's never asked for a trade. And number two, he's exactly what you want in the locker room. He's exactly what you want as a defensive leader. And I do think that there's a little bit of a reward here for him from the organization of, you know, we've been through the muck. You hung in there with us. Thanks for being a good soldier. Never hear anything out of him. And I think part of this is listen, he's a phenomenal player, obviously, still. But I think part of this is also a reward for being a good soldier and for being such a great leader and doing things the right way and approaching everything the way that you want it approached. So I am curious to see when it'll be a few days, probably the end of this week, early next, when the real details of the contract are out. And then you can see if this helps being able to trade him later, if it makes it harder. I don't think that he ends his career here, unfortunately. I think they probably will move off of him at some point. But for the time being, like we said this when they traded him out, you can't get rid of everybody. Like, you have to have some sort of veteran leadership in the locker room. And part of the Browns' problem for the last 30 years is having the wrong guys in leadership positions and having leaders that aren't great leaders. And I think that they've got a few more to go with how it's structured. But I think it's a step in the right direction moving. And listen, I tiptoed around it with the Myles stuff last year and everybody lost their minds. But he was not the type of leader. Phenomenal talent on the field. In the locker room, you could probably do a little bit better. Denzel is exactly what you want. So for that reason, I don't have a huge issue with it. I'll just be curious to see the terms of the contract extension when they come out.
Obviously, there's some potential downside because it seems like most of the money's guaranteed. And at age 31, 32, he could be a bad player.
Yeah.
I mean, it could happen in a hurry.
Yeah.
That being said, I agree with what you're saying. If you're going to do it for a guy, you do it for Denzel Ward.
Absolutely.
Consummate pro, consummate leader. I think while, yes, his concussions are a concern because he's had a lot of them, I think it's been overstated. He hasn't missed that many games. He's never missed a significant chunk of the season. He's had a number of seasons where he's missed like 2 or 1 or 3 games. But you look at the games played that he could have possibly, he's played most of the games. And outside of the concussions, he really hasn't dealt with any injuries. Even though he's going to be 29 this season, he's still playing at a very high level, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And it'll be, and I think when you've lost your best player in Myles Garrett and you've lost your defensive coordinator, you don't want to lose now your second best player, who's now your best player, along with Carson Schlesinger, and your veteran. And I think you're right. This is some sort of, they probably paid him more than you would another guy. And by the time
pain and suffering damages.
Right, yeah. And by the time you have to pay it, they should be in much better cap shape.
Now you can make the case that they did everything that we have all said is true.
Yeah.
And they didn't have to give him the extension anyway. He's still under control for 2 more years.
Right.
So
that's true.
And I wonder if that's the point Zach will make when he's in.
Yeah, and I get it. There is certainly
there was no urgency to do this.
Right. And the Browns seem to do this quite often. But if you're going to do it with a guy, I just think Denzel Ward's the right guy.
I agree.
Because he's a good player, and by all accounts, and I don't know, obviously I don't know him personally, but I know people who do, a tremendous person, great leader, and good influence, and you can't have all kids on the team.
Right.
And I understand Zach's point of the way to get out of this and make the Browns a contender is you need to be bad for a year or two, get those good draft picks.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can't do that at the sacrifice of getting rid of any kind of stable culture, any kind of leadership in that locker room, because then what happens? Then all of a sudden you're back with all kids in the locker room. There is no established culture, and then you're kind of right back in the wheel of madness. So keeping a guy like Denzel around, passing that torch, I'm with you, Jason. I don't know that he sees the end of that contract before they move off of him, but we'll see. But you got to have that culture established for when Arch Manning comes in and he's going to be the next leader of this team, or whoever it is. I'm just throwing Arch out there, but you got to have that established if you want to be a winning franchise.
Certainly they are not maximizing the value of the asset, because if you're trying to maximize the value of the asset, knowing that where you're at with this thing, you probably would trade them right now. And you get what you can for it.
Maybe they but you know what, Jason? Maybe they looked at possibly trading him, and nobody's willing to offer more than the 3rd round pick, and they're like, you know what? We're going to trade him for a 3rd round pick. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know that makes much sense.
No, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
If that's the best you can get, I'd rather have Denzel. But again, you can do that without giving him
I hear
an extra $60 million.
But on the other hand, Denzel, unfortunately, is not going to be the difference between them being good and not good. Let's face it.
That's the other thing. He's at a position of
right. Like, it matters more
if
when
Myles
they're
Garrett could get 5 sacks in a game and they lose by 20, Denzel Ward is not single-handedly winning you football games.
But it's just his timeline doesn't align with the rest of the team, which is why you would try and maximize the value of the asset now and move off of him, because
there's no reason
of the age gap between the nucleus of this team and where he's at.
Agreed, but is there any, it's as crazy as it seems for the Browns because they always get it wrong. If they do get it right, and whether that's, I know at least you and I think it's unlikely that Shedeur Sanders is the guy, or more likely, hopefully, that whoever they draft next year is the guy.
Yeah.
If they hit, let's say they finally do it. Let's say next year they have a good quarterback. Well, okay, maybe the Browns could jump to good in a hurry.
I totally agree.
If they get a quarterback, because they do have a decent team outside of that position. So I don't think it's crazy that next year they could be good.
I've been saying that.
Yeah, no, I know that. Yeah. And so maybe Denzel, even though he's older, still lines up with the team. It doesn't. A couple of years ago, maybe we were thinking it's going to take a few years because the whole team's a disaster. But they got a lot of good young players.
Yeah.
It's not going to matter until they get the quarterback, but if they can in the next year,
you can maybe cash on 1 or 2 really good Denzel years left.
Right. And you want to, if they are going to be good, you want to have some veterans on both sides of the ball.
Totally agree.
So I don't know.
Do you think Denzel is still in a Browns uniform when they play their first game in the new Brook Park Stadium in a few years?
So they signed him through. This is.
I keep forgetting.
So the last year of this extension will be the 29 season. Correct? Will he still be on the team in 29?
Is the dome opening in 29 or 28?
Stadium's opening in 29, I believe,
29,
right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it would be the last year extension would be the first year of the dome.
Yeah, because he currently has 2 years left on his deal, which is 26 and 27, and then the 2 extra years, 28, 29. Correct.
I think it's 50-50. I think it.
I would lean no.
I'm gonna say yes. He starts the first game, and then I think he gets traded at the trade deadline. But they're gonna say, Denzel, thanks. You get to play in the dome for a game, and now you're out.
If he's still good, in 28.
Yeah.
Which I don't think is crazy.
No.
And if they're good going into 29,
then there's no reason to move on.
Then he's here.
Yeah.
Now, those are, I think on him, it's a small if. I think on the team, it's at least a medium, if not big if.
Yeah.
But if they're good and he's still good, then he'll be here. But that's, will both things happen? Hopefully.
Yeah.
Something's bound to go their way eventually, right? Law of averages.
It has to turn around. It has to turn around at some point. But I don't know. You're saying no. You're saying yes. And then the trade deadline.
It's close.
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to be a little optimistic. I'm going to take some of that Tyvis Powell optimism and say yes. Mike, what about you? What do you say?
I mean, I think a player of his age projecting 3 years down the road for the
Well, you asked us to project.
No, I know.
You can't complain about the process.
I think it's easy to say no, and no's probably the right answer, but I do feel like the front office, the staff, the city, his teammates love Denzel in a way that maybe someone like Miles wasn't loved.
Yeah, but
I do think that goes a long way because his trade value in 29 is going to be minuscule, if anything.
He's not going to have.
Yeah, but I don't think that has anything to do with it because nobody was more loved than Nick Chubb, and they let him go.
At the end of his contract,
free agent.
though.
Yeah. He was a free agent. Ward will be under contract.
I understand that, but that last year they'll probably have some way to get out of the contract the last year.
Yes.
And if he's not good, they're not going to keep him.
Correct.
They would have, if Nick Chubb was still good, they would have re-signed him.
Fair.
He was shot.
I'll be curious to see now that he's got this extension if they continue to rework the contract and push more dead money down the road as they always have.
It's been their MO.
It's been their MO.
Or will they change that because it's not really worked?
One last thing I wanted to mention.
It works when the players are good.
Right.
It's a disaster when the players are bad.
If they restructure that next year, say, and turn it into a signing bonus and push dead money forward, you're playing with fire.
Yeah, right.
Although, their argument is the cap keeps going up. So
that's right, which is right, significantly.
They hit the percentage of the
and
hit
it will
gets
keep
less.
going up because they're eventually going to have 18 games.
Right.
They're going to expand to more teams. Like, the league is not losing money.
Correct.
The one thing I want to mention is with this extension, Denzel is now the highest paid cornerback on an average annual basis at $31 million or $31.1 million, just surpassing Trent McDuffie. When you look at the other guys, and once again, the next guy who signs will be the new highest paid AAV. The next guy, I get it all. Patrick Surtain's due for an extension. He's only making $24 million per year. I was looking at this list and I was like, you know what? Denzel's still as good as any of those guys. Like, he's not Surtain's in a class of his own, and I think Christian Gonzalez and Derek Stingley are 2-3. After that top three, he's as good as anyone in the league still, and deserves to be one of, if not the highest paid dudes at the position.
Yeah, I mean, if he were a free agent, he'd get around that money, right? So I think it's fine.
I'm more just saying I don't think it's a massive over. Some people were like, that's too much. I don't think it's an overpay.
No, I don't think so either.
Market value for a player who's still incredible at what he does on a week-in, week-out basis.
Yeah. And like we said, this is also paying for being a good soldier and doing it consistently.
Yeah, which you don't want to get in the habit of doing that regularly because it's not good business.
But certain guys have earned that, and Denzel certainly has earned that.
Yes, agreed.